All right, so welcome back to my channel. This is Laith, and I got a very special guest for you today, Tom, who I've known for some years. We'll have a chat about that in a very quick second. If you follow me, you'll know that this is all about managing marathons and managing marathons from the widest respect, as you already know. Hydration, nutrition, how often you run, how you run, the intensity, what shoes you're wearing, all of that kind of stuff. So, and it's also for, let's say, the plus 50-year-old. So you might be wondering why this chap on your screen doesn't look 50. That's because he's less than half my age. But I thought I'd bring him on to the channel because it's a very useful insight into how longevity helps us. Because I was super active when I was younger, around Tom's age and even younger, to be fair. And because of that, I think it stays with you. And so as you grow older and as we mature, it really does help us with our body, our skeletons, everything around the body that's been active for a long time. You're not just starting to get back into it when you're sort of 50, 60. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And I know lots of friends who've done exactly that. The earlier you start, the longer that you have that longevity in terms of health and vitality, suppleness and strength. So I want to welcome to the channel, Tom. Tom, thank you very much for joining us today. I know you're very busy, not only with work, but also with training. You are a boxer first and foremost, but you also run an awful lot to keep fit. We'll come on to that. And right now, I'm very grateful because you're actually on holiday, aren't you? So you're on holiday in California, and it looks like a fantastic place. Before we started recording, you just showed me where you were. It looks absolutely stunning. But maybe just give me a quick introduction to who you are, what you generally do in terms of activity and sports.
Of course. Hi guys, I'm Tom. I'm 25 years old, amateur boxer with a record of 3-0 at the moment. I used to compete in kickboxing, where I had 7 full contact kickboxing fights. I also competed at 3 international kickboxing competitions. I had probably close to maybe 30, 40 fights on the mats, as well as, as you said, 7 in the ring. Outside of that, obviously I run for the fitness for boxing. I'm also a big gym goer as well. So I like to lift in the gym. I also do stuff on a treadmill as well, like hit running. I generally just like being active. I do a lot of walking. While being out here on holiday, I've walked quite a lot. But I generally like to be active, really, generally about being positive. I enjoy reading as well. Currently on book 30 this year as well, which I believe adds to the general mindset, which I'm really big into. It helps with the training and everything. So
yeah, it does, and that's one of the things we're going to come on to. You read an awful lot, and I recall certainly at your age. Just give me a run through not what you've read, but roughly how many books do you read a year, just on average or approximately, starting from maybe 3 or 4 years ago when you got into it.
Yeah, so reading the story actually started with you, Leif. So you recommended me to read, and it was back in the lockdown actually. And as we all know, we had a lot of time on our hands. So I thought, what can I do? I'll get back to reading. So I was in Asda at the time, and I remember going to the book aisle and I saw this book called Not a Life Coach by James Smith, who I follow on Instagram, and I thought, that could be all right. And then I saw an Middleton book, and I thought, that could be all right as well. And then I saw, what was the other book? Tyson Fury. That's Tyson Fury's book. And I thought, I'm going to take all these 3 books and I'm going to read them. So long story, I started reading through those. And then I was like, I like this. And I just kept buying books. And I was at that time in my life and stuff, I had a few things going on, a few problems outside. Obviously, lockdown happened as well. And I need to work there a bit more. So I really got into the whole mindset side of things. And a lot of that came from books, reading about how to deal with stuff and new ways to think. And it really, every book I read, I thought, I want to keep learning more, keep reading more. And it just started that, really. Then the next year, I started keeping a log of how many I've read. It was that first year I kept the log, I believe it was 27 or 31, I believe. The next year after that was 3. This year we're currently 30 at the moment.
Wow. So hold on, let me pause you there. So the first year you read approximately 31 books. Now, I there'll be a lot of people watching this. That's an awful lot of books. And as I said, at your age, I certainly wouldn't have read that many books. I know that for sure. And then the year after that, I think you just got back into work. We were just slightly coming out of lockdown. You read 23 books. And now it's only just the 2nd of July. So we're halfway through the year. And you've already read 30 books, did you say? That's about 84 books in the space of 2.5 years.
And going on to 100.
Yeah, you're keeping up with Warren Buffett, mate. That's insane. Now, you said something really interesting there. We're going to come on to the running for everybody that's watching. This is a running channel, but it's really interesting that Tom's 25. He started reading voraciously at the age of 22, 23. And taking in and absorbing everything that those books teach us. Now, I'm in training, and when it comes to leadership and communication training, I read an awful lot. And you may have heard Tom say I recommended a couple of books. I read an awful lot because it helps me absorb information I can then share with my customers and clients. Tom's doing it for self-development, and he loves to read. It also relaxes him when we're talking offline. It really does help us relax when we're reading and taking things. Your imagination is firing up, and it switches your brain off from either running, which is more intense, and certainly more than boxing or kickboxing, which is far more intense. So if you could give me one or two or three takeaways, Tom, what are the main takeaways you've taken? I mean, that's an insane amount of books in 2.5 years. If you had to give me sort of high level one or two things you took away or learned, particularly around mindset and nutrition and being active, what would they be?
One of the best books I've probably read. It's called The 48 Laws of Power. I audioed it. It's a really long book. It's a really tough read. But there's one of the laws in there that probably most stood out to me is enter with boldness. And it talks about whether, anything you do in life, whether it be, going for a boxing match or going to a marathon, or even like something at work, like a big day at work, enter with boldness, have that confidence, walk up chest high, walk in there with that confidence. And that's a big lesson I took with not only inside boxing as well, like when I go into fights and I've been to like races, but just like general life really. I've walked into a situation, just enter with boldness, the day if something goes wrong or if you fail, you learn. It's experience at the end of the day. Just go in there with boldness, and that's a big lesson I took from that book.
Yeah.
There's another one of my favorite books you actually gave to me, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
One of my favorite. Yeah. Stephen Covey. Yeah. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, for sure.
Although every one of those books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of my favorite habit in that book is always sharpen the saw.
Yeah.
I think that's great in terms of some people they're always at it, but you need to take time to relax, to refocus, to plan. And that's like even being out here, that's what I'm doing now. I'm thinking about things in the future. I'm planning out, when I go at the gym. Always take that time to, although you're training hard, like running, boxing, always take that time, sharpen the saw, think what's next, plan ahead,
Yes. And I think Stephen Covey draws a really wonderful analogy there where he's got two people chopping wood, for example. The first chap gets at it and starts chopping the wood voraciously and ferociously, trying to chop all the wood and get through it. And the other chap, he gives us an example, spends half the time sharpening the saw and then gets through the wood far more quickly because the saw is sharper. Or the axe in this case is sharper. And the analogy there is absolutely train hard, work out and so on and so forth, but don't do it to the excessive amount where when it comes to, in our case, marathons or half marathons or running, in your case, a very important boxing match, don't do it to the extent that you're fatigued and that you're actually now too tired to perform well on the day, whether it happens to be boxing or marathon. And people that follow the channel will know that marathons and half marathons, there needs to be a taper time. So if you're training for a 12 or a 16-week block, you can choose to taper for 2 or 3 weeks before the marathon. That allows your body to recover, and your diet has to be well balanced during that recovery time. So your hydrating and your nutritions are going in at the right level at the right time in order for you to perform best on D-Day, on the day of the marathon, and in your case, on the day of the boxing match. So that's fantastic. Boldness is confidence. I love that. That's absolutely true when it comes to, as I say, boxing and or marathons. And sharpening the saw. Any one more lesson perhaps you can share with us that you learned? You also have a saying, I think, Tom, something about always learning, never losing or something. What was your...
John Kavanagh's book, who's famously the coach of Conor McGregor. I can't off the top of my head recall the book, but he talks in there, it's never a loss, always a lesson.
So let me just say that again. That's really cool. Never a loss, always a lesson. And I think we can apply that to everything in life, isn't it? So, if you take every negative aspects of your life, whether you're running, working, presenting, doing a project, whatever it might be, as a negative, it tends to be a downward spiral rather than upward cycle. Never a loss, always a lesson. Just take a lesson from whatever happened and move forward. I love that.
Yeah, that's one of a big lesson I've got, especially with where I've in kickboxing, obviously I lost fights in kickboxing. And I always used to think, I've lost, or I can't get anything out of this. But my mindset now is never a loss, always a lesson. So obviously I haven't lost as a boxer, touch wood. A sparring session, for example, I maybe get beaten up a little bit. I always go away and think, all right, I've had a bad session, but what can I learn from it,
Yeah.
Or what did he catch me? Right, I need to get my hands up a bit more. I need to move my head. All right, he's finding a range. Right, I need to get closer. Even with running, if I'm trying to get under 25 for a 5K, all right, what do I need to shave off for every kilometre to get, And there's all those little things there, and it's never a loss. It's always a lesson, And that's anything in life as well. If you have a bad relationship, it breaks down. Well, why did it break down? What can you do to be better for next time,
Yeah.
If you goes wrong at work, all right, what do I need to do to be better, If something happens and it's a failure in brackets, just see what you can learn from it. Pick yourself up and then see what you can learn from it.
Absolutely. And it's incremental little lessons, isn't it? So you can't bite off more than you can chew, an old cliche, but it's absolutely true. Just learn small amounts every time there is a loss, as you say, in inverted commas, or a failure. Because I don't think there are failures either. They're always going to be lessons. In fact, if you do well all the time and everything's a win, you don't learn anything. And if you don't learn anything, that's when you plateau and wonder why you're not getting better. And that includes running. So, at my age, I'm 57, I'm 58 this year. I've managed to get from my slowest, which was actually, I've got an even slower one now, but certainly from New York, this is the shirt that I was wearing, from a 4-hour 37 down to Seville, where I did a 3-hour 57. So that's exactly 40 minutes shaved off my marathon time. And as you say, that took me a year to do. That wasn't easy. And I wasn't about to do it in a couple of races. It takes a long time because, like you, and I know you do this meticulously, which is one of the things I want to talk about, I've got a notebook, which is purely for my running. I put down all my nutrition, my times, my workouts, etc., etc. Especially now, for example, I'm working up to the Berlin Marathon at the end of September, 29th September. I'm now starting another 12-week training block. And I'm looking back at last year's Berlin Marathon to see what I did. Now, last year's about 4 hours 30, and I'm thinking, and each one of them has had a lesson. And I'm now up to sort of 10, I don't need to count them, I think 12 or 13 marathons. And by writing them down a year ago, I can now go back to those notes and figure out where I went wrong. And I have been doing that each marathon. So you're right, taking notes and just reminding yourself what you did, and then doing 100%. It slightly better next time starts to have that incremental improvement. And I know you do the same with boxing and all your training, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. It's that 1 or 2% you're looking for. Like when you look at the top level athletes, top level boxers, runners, it's that 1 or 2% edge they've got. There's not a lot between the first guy and the second guy. In a boxing match, it can be razor tight, but it's that extra preparation, that extra mindset, that extra nutrition, that extra will to go more that gets you that victory. When you've got two guys who are fairly evenly close to the top of a division, it's that 1 or 2% that separates them. Look at a cyclist, I believe it was, I read this in a book a while back, the guy who took over, I believe it was the British cycling team. All he done was change up their thing 1 or 2%. He gave them extra better pillows, focus on their sleep. Didn't do anything dramatic. But in a few years, they were winning gold medals. It's that 1 or 2% to look for. You know what I mean? Just if you can improve every day, if you improve 1% every month, in 10 months, that's 10%. Because you 10%, it's small things, but it all adds up.
Absolutely.
And going on, you have to trust the process. Like, if for a few weeks, you might be not doing very well, or you might be, like for me, for example, I remember recently, beginning of the year, I went down to spar a good friend of mine in Bristol. I was a really tough sparring session. I was like, And then I went away, I wrote down some stuff, worked on a few things in the gym, went to spar him again, and I had success. But I had to trust the process that I could go away, take the good bits from it, work on the bad bits, and then come back and improve. That's what I did,
Yeah, and I know exactly who you're talking about. He's a hard fighter and worth his weight in gold. He's fast, he's accurate, and he's a hard puncher. I sparred with him once, and that was enough. But and that was in my kickboxing days. But you're doing it as pure boxing, and I'm pretty sure he's as tough as nails still. And he's a young guy, and he's super fit. Even just going back in the ring with him also comes back to what you're saying about boldness and confidence. And I think that's critical. Now, when it comes to running, it's the same principle. You've got to have the confidence to be able to do this stuff. Where do you think confidence comes from then, Tom? So you run a lot, and we'll sort of transition into the running in a moment. So, I mean, before we started recording, you said now that you're on holiday, you still felt like you should go out for a run. Now, for a lot of people, running is the last thing they want to do, full stop, but especially when they're on holiday. So what made you want to go running?
I think regarding confidence, for me anyway, some people might be different. For me, it's all of my preparation. I go into fights with 100% confidence because I've trained my hardest. I've worked in the gym, done my runs, I've been to, I've lifted, I've been away to spa. I've got my confidence. That's where my confidence comes from. Is the training that I've done, And I always look for things that will put me 1 or 2%. Like Christmas Day, me and you went for a park run. Now, when I next go to fight, I'm thinking Christmas Day I ran. Did you run? Probably
Yeah,
not.
and New Year's Day, if you remember.
And this day I was running.
Yeah.
Out here, I'm getting up every morning. If I wanted to, I could stay into bed. I'm getting out. There's a lovely view, but every morning I'm going for a run because in my head it's that getting myself up. Is that, and I take confidence from that. Went down to Devon 2 weeks ago, and I was having a bit to drink out there. Waking up every morning, I was I don't have to go. But I said no, I'm gonna. I come back and I felt better, and that's where my confidence comes from. Because there might be other people doing it, but I know I'll always do it because that's just in my head, and that's where my confidence comes from. Is from my training. I couldn't ever get a fight or a marathon without having trained for it. I couldn't just step in there and think, I'll just do it off a whim. I always go into that knowing I've given 100%, and I'm prepared to go in there and give it my all.
Yeah. And let's unpack that a little bit, because you very quickly said what you did there was, you're eating well, your nutrition and hydrating well, but you're also lifting weights and running. And that's all to support your main sport, which is boxing. So, the boxing's the top of the pyramid, but there's an awful lot underneath all of that that helps you get to 3-0, which you're at now. Not to mention the hundreds of sparring sessions you've had with me and other people through kickboxing years and pure boxing. So, having this goal at the top, which is to be whatever, and in other words, you're winning all your fights. There has to be something that underpins and supports that. And you very quickly went through that, you rattled through it. But I just wanted to point out how much time and energy and commitment that takes. Because I know that you train almost 5 or 6 days a week, if not more in some cases, particularly over lockdown, and that hasn't stopped since. So you're talking about 365 days a year, probably training 350 days a year, aren't you, give or take?
Yeah, I mean, an average week for me is probably maybe like 5 or 6 days training, maybe 1 or 2 days rest, depending on how I feel.
Yeah, and which is important, like we said, with sharpening the saw. Yeah.
So like, if I'm getting in like a Friday session and I'm a bit tired, a bit run down, I might have a Saturday, Sunday off. Yeah. Maybe I thought on the Saturday I could get a quick park run in, maybe a gym session.
And you're listening to your body, aren't you? So there's no point just doing hard 7 days a week, because ultimately you'll just burn out, and then you'll be useless at either boxing or running.
100%. But I want to add, that's something that I've learned over years. So after we put my hands up in a minute, back when I was a kickboxer, I used to overtrain all the time. I showed up to train groggy, I was tired, and it showed in my fights, because I get there and I'd just be at 50%. I was always, train hard. Every session was 100%. And lockdown came, reading a bit more. I was around some better knowledgeable people, and that's why I've taken my training now. Like I might have a session where it's not as hard, maybe only pushing, it's getting the body fired up. It's not a draining session. Then I might have a really tough session, then a nice recovery run. I've structured it, not overtraining. So I get to fights and I'm sharp, I'm switched on, I'm not groggy anymore, I'm not tired showing up, I've got energy, But I've learned that. That's something that I've learned over years. Yeah. And it's something in the gym, you've got every session can't be 100%. You can't run yourself into the ground. And it's something you live experience. I've been there. I've been to fights before, back as a kickboxer. I was
you're in trouble when you're tired before you even start, before you step in the ring or step on the mat. You're tired, and that nervous energy doesn't make it any better either. I've been there as well many times. If you're already fatigued and tired before you step on the mat, and there's somebody bigger than you and heavier than you who literally want to punch you, it's not a good state to be in. So you're right. Working 4, 5, 6 times a week, but knowing when your body needs a rest, and taking that rest, listen to your body, listen to the signals, and take a rest. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I want to touch on that again. I remember as a kickboxer, I was training on, I think it was like a Thursday before I was fighting on a Saturday. Well, it'd be fun on the weekend. I got to the fight and I fell flat. Yeah. Now, in comparison, I lost a boxing match. Yeah. I think it was a Thursday again before I'd done a sharp warm up, done a bit of pads. My coach was like, right, Tom, you're done. I was like, I'm done. He goes, yeah, you're done. Take your gloves off, go home, rest, get ready for your fight. I was like, all right, cool. Took gloves off, said goodbye to the boys and stuff. Went home, had my rest, got to the fight, and I won. Yeah. So I was so full of geared up to go. I got it.
And it makes such a difference, doesn't it? Because you're literally giving your body a rest. Now your muscles, you're building up that strength, the flexibility, the speed. All of that's great while you're training, but actually that all happens when your body is resting, isn't it? And you're also a qualified PT, so you've studied this and you've also trained other people. So something we haven't mentioned, but as a qualified PT, you know as well as anybody else that it's actually during the rest period and you're sleeping that your body starts to gain that strength and recover in order for it to be at a level higher than when you started.
100%. Like if you don't get your recovery in, recovery is the key to everything. If you don't recover from a session, you won't get anything from that session. Training is a stimulus. So you train, recover, and that's where you get a benefit from it. You can't train really hard, not recover. You won't get anything from it. You stimulate your body to get better. You're lifting, you're running, you're shadowboxing, you're stimulating that body to get better. Then you rest, how it be, sleep, eat. That's where the magic happens. That's where you get your,
and then just do that in multiple cycles. And it's the analogies between boxing and kickboxing, but certainly boxing and running are very similar from that perspective, because we have the similar thing. It's almost like the 80-20 Pareto's principle, where they'll say 8 or 9 out of 10 of your runs should be easy runs. And what you're doing is you're building up that endurance, you're building up that stamina, and you're building up your aerobic capability. And then 1 or 2 runs a week or out of 10 should be faster pace or a tempo pace, or even some sprints or some hill repeats. That's just 1, to mix it up, but 2, not to stress the body out. So the idea is just to get that endurance in for 8 or 9 runs out of 10. And very similar with you, like you said, the hard, intense sparring sessions may only be 2 out of 10, because your body needs to learn the movement. And I certainly remember this from kickboxing, and now much more current with the running. If you go hard at it, you're not actually learning anything. You're just stressing your body out. So in order to get your form right, your breathing right, your stance right when you're running, you need to do that fairly slowly on one of the runs, and 8 or 9 of the runs, just to get your style and your form correct, your footfall, how are you landing your feet, how are you leaning, how are you breathing? Because if you go straight into a fast tempo run without getting the basics right, the chances are you're just doing it wrong faster.
Japanese say if you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. So
Correct.
That's the way.
Yeah. Very, very true. And you mentioned Stephen Covey's book earlier with the 7 Habits. Sharpening the saw is one of your main principles. For me, it's one of his: start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that's the same with you with a boxing match. If you've got a boxing match in 3 months' time, you don't think about the training in 3 months' time. You think about it now, as I am now. I've got literally 12 weeks until the end of September, which is Berlin. And I start with the end in mind. Now, what am I trying to do? For me, a good time is to get sub 4. And I know that's not the case with everybody, but for me at my age, since that's my target, I'm trying to achieve another sub 4, which I'll be very happy with. And in order to do that, I'm now following a training plan that will help me achieve that. But I've got to start now. So you start with the end in mind, which for me is Berlin on the 29th of September. And I backtrack for now, and what do I need to do now for the next 12 weeks in order to achieve that goal and that target?
100%. That's, you start with that end in mind. For me, if I've got a fight or like a race or something, I know, right, I need to be the best condition I can mentally and physically in order to perform on a day. How do I start? Runs, hitting the gym, lifting, sparring, but not only that as well, is having something one of my old coaches, a good friend of mine, Richard Mills, told me, having an awareness of what you're doing. If you're in the gym, what we're trying to work on today, is it speed, is it power, is it strength? If I'm out running, what's the run for? Clearing the head, or is it working on the mental side of things? Is it a quick run so I can compete at a fast pace? Having an awareness too, while also having the end in mind, is to get the best performance. Is all good and well training. Train with intent. Know what you're doing. Know why you're doing it.
Train with intent. I like that. So don't just train randomly and haphazardly. Train with a plan. Train with a strategy in mind to a particular goal. Yeah.
Without a training plan in place. I've it written down in my book. I know when I get to the gym, right, stretch, mobilize. Main lifting session, core, cool down. I know what I've got. You see some guys that get to the gym and they're sort of, looking around. They don't really know what they're doing because they're just like rabbit in headlights. I know what I'm going to do when I get there, where I'm going to do it, how it's going to be done, how many reps, rest time, you name it. I may tailor it. If the gym's a little bit busy, all right, I can't get on the squat rack. Right, what can I do instead? Landmine squat. I'm going to do a deadlift. I can't do it. What can I do is hip hinge, barbell, hip, boom. You make changes to it slightly depending on what's happening. The general plan itself stays in place.
Yeah. So you've got a plan, and then as we talk about presentation skills, for example, in my everyday job, have a backup. If the projector doesn't work or the laptop doesn't work, what are you going to do? You can't just sit there like a rabbit in the headlights. You've got to have a plan. So know your content, know your subject matter well enough that you've grooved in that vinyl. You know, it's almost like the old records where you've grooved it in so well that if everything goes to pot, you can still stand up there with a flip chart and talk about what you were going to talk about. You don't need the
Yeah.
tech. The same with you. If you go to the gym and everything's busy and some of the equipment is being fixed or maintained or you can't get on it, you've got a backup plan. So you optimize the time that you are at the gym. You're there for an hour, you're going to work out. Half the kit is busy and the other half doesn't work. You've got a backup or a second plan in order to overcome that. Now, in terms of your running, Tom, so thanks for that, because that's a really good insight into your mindset and how you approach things. And I think that's really, really useful for people to know. Have a plan and have the end in mind and sharpen the saw as you go through training and life generally, but certainly when you're doing a sport. But in
100%.
terms of your running, I know running is definitely not your priority. It's a means to an end, in your case for boxing. Tell me a little bit more. You're obviously much closer to the sport than I am. Why is running, I mean, let's face it, when we were at school, certainly when I was at school, running was like a punishment. If you've been bad, you can't play rugby or football, right? You got to go on a 5 mile run, boys, because you've been awful this week. You know, it was like a punishment. But now I'm doing it for fun, would you believe?
Yeah.
You're doing it for what reason? Because it is hard work. I'm not going to lie to you or my audience. Running is hard work. So why would you do that when your main sport is boxing? And why do other boxers do it?
So there's a few reasons behind it. The main reason is scientifically you're building up what's called your aerobic base. So obviously boxing, which is typically an anaerobic sport, but you still need a good aerobic base. A lot of people get this wrong and they believe that they can really good at sprinting and have a good anaerobic engine, but not have an aerobic base. It won't work. It's like
so for some of my viewers who don't know what that is, what's the difference? Can you explain what the differences are?
So I won't go into too much detail. So typically aerobic, think of aerobic as like a marathon. Think of anaerobic as sprinting. So essentially your aerobic base is your ability to carry on. You can go for miles and miles and miles.
So anaerobic, stamina and endurance.
Yeah, stamina and endurance. You look at like Mo Farah, his aerobic engine is second to none. You look at Bolt, his anaerobic work capacity is through the roof because he sprints so it's about that fast power you've got. So
Usain Bolt anaerobically is superb because it's fast, powerful, short, quick, and powerful in that short distance.
Yeah, and the key with boxing is you need both. You need a good anaerobic style so that you can take it to that next level. All right, you're both fighting at a pace. You need to up it. You can do that. However, to do that, you need a good aerobic base as well. So carrying on from what I was saying, for one is to have a good aerobic base so that you can just last the rounds. You know, say I fight 3 rounds, or if I'm sparring maybe 6 rounds, you can last the time. Base level, you can also do the workout in the gym. You can do your circuits, your bag work. You've got that aerobic base to last. Right. The second reason I believe this may not be for everyone, but for me, it's just the mindset side of things. So like me here, for example, right now I'm out on Belvedere Island. It's a millionaire road. You know what I mean? Everyone here is rich. I'm running around there. In my head, I'm thinking, I don't really want to be here. I could be in bed. I could be out on the beach. But I'm doing it because I know it's getting me better. I know no one else is doing the work I'm doing. And it's that mental side of it. When I get into a fight and things get tough, I'm hurt, I'm tired, I can think back to this and go, I ran on Belvedere, or I ran when I was down in Devon. Use that, Or if I'm back home, I'm running up Salem Hill, I know I put that work in. It's that mindset that gets you that confidence, which goes back to, enter with boldness. I've got that confidence from running here. In general, runs all together to put into the fight.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And you also see an awful lot of other boxers doing it as well. I mean, Mayweather, I think you've cited him as an example many times. He may get up at 3 a.m, and I'm sure you've got other examples, and go for a 5-mile run. Now, he does that not because he's bored or he can't sleep. I think you said something, and I'm paraphrasing now, something along the lines that if I'm doing this at 3 a.m, running a 5-mile or a 10-mile run, whatever he used to do, it's because he knows damn well that his competitors are not doing that. So from a mindset perspective only, he already knows he's above these people in terms of his capability, skill, speed, and fitness.
Yeah, 100%. Like he said, I think I read a book about him as well. I watched a lot of his interviews online, and he talks about, he's getting up at, I think he wakes up at 11 o'clock to train, but he knows no one else is training at that time, He about be out in a club in Vegas and just think, I'm going to run home. So he just leave the club wearing all his smart gear and just run home. That's the way he works. Look up the boxers. Like I read Tony Belliw's book last year, and he talks about 5 o'clock, and he wouldn't brush his teeth before he ran, so he had that horrible taste in his mouth. And he said he just did it to get that grit, that want to.
I like that. I might have to try that.
From I can't remember who it was, but he said it's hard getting up at 5 a.m. when you sleep in silk pajamas to go for a run.
Yeah.
And this world champion boxer, come from poor, and it all. He said it's hard getting up to go for a run when you sleep in silk pajamas, but they still do it to stay at the top of their game. They have to.
Yeah, still sharpening the saw, aren't they? Even, and it's the classic Rocky Balboa movies, in the first 2 or 3 movies, especially the first one, it's raw, it's gritty, he's come from nothing, and he's just wants to get on in life. And then by the 4th and 5th one, he's in the lap of luxury, and then gets a little bit slower, a little bit less intense, and a bit more careless. And that's when he starts losing, until he realizes, actually, do you know what? I better start sharpening that saw again. So, yeah.
Important thing there. You've got one of my favorite quotes is, the wolf climbing the hill is hungrier than the wolf at the top of the hill.
Oh, that's true.
Whenever you get to the top, there's always someone who wants to take it from you. Look at many kings. You can be the king, there's always someone else coming for you.
Yeah.
You look at guys top of the fields, Mo Farah, Usain Bolt, Michael B. Jordan, look at boxers like AJ Fury. There's always someone that's trying to take you off that pedestal, So when you get there, I hope read for another book, getting to the top's easy. Staying at the top is hard.
Staying at the top is hard, yeah, for sure. And that's so true in any sport, isn't it? Whether you're Usain Bolt, Mo Farah, or AJ, doesn't matter. In fact, you're talking about Fury, and Fury's probably learned that lesson just recently, with Usyk, and they've got another fight coming up in December. But this is a classic example of where he may or may not have prepared well. I don't want to get into that too much now, but it just shows that when you lose that intensity, when you lose that focus, when you lose that plan, things can happen, can't they?
Yeah, 100%. If you're not on your game, if you're not pushing that extra percent when you're at the top, someone's coming for you, because that person below you, they want what you've got. They want to be where you are, and they're prepared to work for it. And it's like, are you still willing to put in the work you did to get to the top, to then stay at the top?
Yeah, I'd agree. And, just focus on your running, Tom. So I know, as I said many times now, running is just a support mechanism to make you a better boxer, isn't it? So you do a lot of little weight training, you do a huge amount of walking and hiking. I know that you walk an awful lot during the week. I'm a big advocate of walking as well. I think walking is a very low impact sport, but it keeps your aerobic base quite high for something so easy. I'm surprised more and more people don't do it. And then, of course, you do a lot of fitness and weight training and so on and so forth. So I know, for example, that, when we're talking about a 5K run, for a lot of people, just managing under 30 minutes is a huge achievement. It's a big goal. It was for me before the pandemic. Now, I've managed to get it down to about 23, just a shade under 23 minutes, which was insanely hard for me. But I know you've done a sub 20.
2020 was my fastest on a 5K.
That's amazing.
So
2020.
Not quite a sub 20. It's one day though. 2020 was my fastest.
That's fantastic.
I was with my mate at the time, and we were both running together, and we set out for a fast run, and we weren't talking the whole time. We were just.
That's fantastic. I mean, we're talking about a 4-minute kilometer. You're repeating that 5 times, which is fantastic. Now, considering that's not your main sport, I think that's amazing. And for a lot of runners out there, that's an aspirational time to get to. And then, I've run at least a couple of half marathons with you, and I think your best time for half marathon is 1:41. If I remember well. That's amazing. A lot of people are aiming, and these are runners. This is not a secondary sport. These are runners, are aiming for a sub 2-hour half marathon. Certainly a 1:45 is aspirational as well. I mean, we're not talking about the elite athletes who are getting regularly under 1:30. We're talking about your everyday person whose aspirational time is less than 2 hours, sub 2 hours. If you really want to go for it, 1:45. And here you are as a 3rd or 4th sport, just to keep fitness and aerobic base high, you're achieving 1:41 and 20-minute 5K. How are you managing that? Because that's an awful lot of work there. I know I can't achieve those times, even with the amount of running I do. And I range between 60 to about 90 kilometers a week. I know I'm more than double the age, but for me, those are aspirational times. But you're doing it just as part of your general fitness. Talk me through that.
A lot of it actually comes down to boxing. So a lot of the boxing training we do is quite intense. So the circuit's really intense, sparring. Your heart rate is naturally higher than it would be when you run. So when
right. Okay. Yep. Yep.
run, typically my heart rate's lower. So I'm used to going at a higher pace. So I believe it's down to, because I'm used to being at a higher pace, a higher heart rate. When I then drop in brackets down to running, I've got more in a tank, if you know what I mean. I've got more. Yeah. So when I'm running like a fast 5K, for example, my mindset is I'm in a fight. It's a fast pace. I've got to work, That's my mindset. If I drop on a kilometre, I've got to pick it up. I've lost a round.
Sorry, let me pause. That's really interesting. So let's just explore that a little bit more. So, your heart rate, I don't know what it is when you're boxing, but I'm guessing 160, 170 plus at least, I should imagine.
Probably more about 185 plus.
Right, 185 plus. Now, if you're running, and I think I heard you say there that when you drop your heart rate lower than that, when you think about yourself being in a boxing match, we're only talking about 5K, so it's not intense for a prolonged period, and I wouldn't recommend that for anybody. But for a 5K over 180, 185 at your age, that's how you're managing to get the 20-minute 5Ks, which is amazing. But you're also thinking about it. Half your mind is focusing on, I need to keep this up for 5 kilometers or 20 odd minutes, because I need that base to take it to my boxing ring when I'm under pressure in the ring. Have I got that right?
Yeah, 100%. Like that's something that gets me through the hard miles, the hard kilometers. I'm thinking I need that good pace, because when I get to a fight, that's what it's going to be like, And just having that push, being able to put my foot down on the gas, if you like. If I've got a 5-minute kilometer, all right, let's get under 5 minutes. I've got to put my foot down on the gas just slightly, just to get me under it. And that's in a fight. You need to be able to take that pace up, because you're both fighting at the same pace, and it's even rounds. Maybe you need to win this round. You need a good 30 seconds to finish. You have to be able to take it higher, because
I've witnessed that with other fighters, and I've certainly witnessed it with you. Where it gets to the later rounds, it's all about who's got the longevity, who's got that base fitness, which is high. Because in many cases, the skill set is roughly the same, more or less. You might have different shots, but the skill set is roughly the same. It comes down to your fitness and how much you want it. Now, 100%. How much you want it not only translates in the ring, but as we've said many times, it also translates to the training leading up to the fight, 12 weeks away, and how intensely you're going to run on those 5Ks, because you're thinking ahead 12 or 16 weeks for the fight. So running does that for you. Yeah.
I actually have a nickname on my boxing club, the Engine. I was like, hit the pads. Like, come on, Tom, engine, show me you got, more in you. And then my last fight, I said to my coach, right, just tell the boys to tell me engine when I'm fighting, and that gets me working. So in the fight video, you can hear him going, engine, Tom, engine, and I'm just throwing all these shots I'm put on him. And when I'm training as well, they'll be like, come on, engine, like we're doing the circuits, so like they're pushing me on.
Your magic word to get you fired up.
100%. And that is when I'm running, like I always put all my stories on me, working on the engine, or when I'm going uphill on engine building, and that's just that psychological thing that gets me working,
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic. And, when you talk about, feeling good, you talk about the runner's high. We talked about that offline as well. Now, when you finished a fast 5K or a fast half marathon, describe what the runner's high feels like to you. Why is it important? What is the runner's high?
Runner's high, I think you can get it at 2 times. I think one is during the run. So like when you hit a really good kilometer, you just get into your flow. But when you get into the flow, into the groove, and you've got that, you just get that runner's high. It was almost as if like the world just, you got tunnel vision, it just blacks out around you. You can feel that, feel yourself in awe. You can feel your feet, you can feel your heart rate, your arms are moving, the wind going past you. That's almost like the runner's high, the flow state. The second part of it is finish, and everything's just, you finish this good run. Like this morning, for example, I went on a really long walk yesterday. Me and Jake, we walked all around San Francisco, all to the bridge and back, which if anyone's been there, it's a real long time. Right, yeah. And we got woke up this morning. I was really bad sunburn as well. Woke up this morning with legs there, and I thought I could skip today. But I thought, no, I'm going for a run. Had my water, dragged myself up to the top of the hill and thought, I'm going to go for a run. And I did it. And then first kilometre in, I was like, oh. And then I got into the groove of it. I got into the flow. I started seeing the good sights. And I got back and I was like, I've done it. You know what I mean? I got it done. It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning.
It's really interesting you say that, because how often do you wake up, and it may not be the morning, it may be mid-afternoon, it may be the evening, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But how often do you think, right, I need to go for a run, but you really, really don't feel like going for a run for whatever reason? You've already just been for one yesterday, you're too tired, you can't be bothered, it's just too much effort. How often do you feel that way, yet you still go?
A lot of the time, I say almost.
It's the same here, and I speak to a lot of runners who are happier, so much happier once they've been for a run, despite not wanting to go for a run. I've definitely been there. I'm there at least once a week where I think, oh, I just can't be bothered today. Just and sometimes I'm just bored with the same route because I've done all the lanes and all the tracks and all the trails around here. Sometimes you just get bored. So I just go wander off on what I call an exploring trail, and I'll go down a path that's a completely new path or a new road just to have a little bit of motivation for a new track. But do you think that's important? And I think you've shared this with me before, where it's those sparring fights where you're going to get punched in the face, and it can hurt, and it does hurt. I've been there where you are. And it's those runs where it's -3 outside. It's the end of January. It's freezing cold. It's absolutely pitch black out there. And there's about 3 inches of snow on the ground and frosty. And you've got to go for a run. I've been there. What makes you do that?
I think it's just a case of, for one, not letting myself down, really. Like, I know the pain of regret is better than the pain of the run, if you like. I know if I don't run, if I don't go for the workout, if I don't do it, I'll regret it. Later in the day, I'll kick myself, oh, Tom, what's going on here? You could have gone, I'll beat myself up about it, I'll make it. So in my head, I'm thinking, if I don't go, I'll regret it. This morning, I knew if I didn't go, I'll regret it. It'll get to about 1 o'clock, it was 2 o'clock here. I get to the middle of the day and I go, oh, I could have done this morning. Like, what am I doing?
Oh.
I could have done that. So the pain of regret is often what gets me up to do it,
I like that. So the pain of regret is greater than the pain of doing an intense 5K run, for example.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I finished the run.
Tips the scales in your favor to go for a run.
Yeah, 100%, because I know I'll beat myself up. I know, I think maybe, the fact I put runs up on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, I think people see that maybe part of that as well as holding me accountable,
Yeah.
Like, because, look what I've done this morning. I've actually got out and done it. But the second, is, for boxing and stuff, I have to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a team sport. If you get in there and you haven't put the work in, you'll get found out, and I won't.
100%. What I'm fascinated by, I mean, I've got 2 teenagers and they're Gen Z. You're a very, very, very late, very young millennial. But, let's talk about young millennials or Gen Zs. I have to say, in all my experience, you're not typical. There's an awful lot of Gen Z and millennials that don't do an awful lot of activity. The US and the UK have got some of the highest obesity rates, eating fast food, eating junk food, not staying healthy or vital through all their activity, non-activities, quite a sedentary lifestyle. How do you think you can get somebody out of that? And I know you read an awful lot of books around motivation and mindset and positivity and so on and so forth. What would you do if you could wave a magic wand, Tom, to get people out of that sedentary lifestyle where they're not active, they prefer to eat at McDonald's every 5 minutes, and they can't be bothered, frankly? I mean, we're not here to change the world, but how would you get 1 or 2 of your mates out of that situation? Myself, it's hard. I've tried, and people are difficult to change.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, when people are set in their ways, it's really hard to get someone to see like the other side, really. I think the main thing is you need to find your why. You hear about a lot of books I've read is start with why.
I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. If anybody's watching this, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's a fantastic book. Is that the book you're referring to, or just Start With Why as a general concept?
Good book as well. Start With Why is a good book.
Yeah.
But as a general motto, start with why. Why are you doing it? I have my whys, why I do what I do. I've had my why for a long time, and I know I'm so focused on, I know that, and I know what I want, and I know why I want it. I've got that. When things get tough, I know why. I don't have to second guess myself about it. Yeah. So I say, you're asking, getting new people involved in it, young people involved in, getting out, being more active, potentially pursuing the sport. It's just have that why, know why you're doing it. Like, is it you want to just be a bit fitter? Is it because you want to have something to talk about? Is it because you enjoy the sport? Have that why, no matter what it is, and that will keep you going when things get a bit tough. That'll get you started. Obviously, you need the discipline to keep going, but that will get you going, and that'll be your anchor. Like, you've got that anchor that oh, what am I doing? You wake up in the morning, oh, what am I doing this? Oh, wait, I know I'm doing it. You've got that there. I had a friend of mine recently, one of probably my best mate, and he was struggling a little bit with stuff, being a bit tired and all that, and he talked about getting into running again. Yeah. And I said, just start. And he said, oh, and I said, just start. And then I was really, really proud of him because he's really kept up with it. I've been taken to parkrun a few times. Yeah. And he's put work into it, and he messaged me, sent me a picture of his run and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, great time, mate. Want to get better and stuff. I said, mate, just trust the process and you'll get better, and he's really kept up with it, and he's really put work into it. And I've dragged him onto park run, and he's had a really good time doing it. So I'm really proud of him. And he's said to me, "Oh, Tom, I get home and I've got so much more energy," And I said, "Well, there you go."
And then hopefully it's the start of this snowball will start to gain momentum and get bigger and more intense and faster. But I really like what you said there. There's two things that I could take away from there for sure. And one is definitely find your why. And, part of that process is just exploring what you like and what you want to do in the future. So find your why. And then the very powerful piece of that is just start. And there are so many aspects of life where you can just relate that to is just start. And
100%.
And that includes work, whether you're working in an office or working anywhere else, or the classic procrastination, dilemma. There's lots and lots of books and literature around this. If people can't do something or they're procrastinating a lot, and this definitely applies to runners. I say the same thing as you've heard advice on other YouTube channels and other running books and other podcasts is get your kit ready the night before. So for me, downstairs, there's my top, my shorts and my trainers with the socks already in them. So when I get up in the morning, I don't have to find an excuse not to do it. It's like, oh, I can't find my trainers, can't find my t-shirt, can't find my shorts. Everything's there ready by the door. And now I can't lie to myself and undermine myself to say, nah, you're all right. You don't need to go because everything was ready the night before. On top of that, as you say before with your mindset, you promised yourself that you'd run the next morning. And that's why you got your kit ready the night before.
Yeah.
So you don't want to fall into this negative downward spiral where you keep lying to yourself because that's when you just won't get on with anything.
Yeah. And it's what you're saying now, I think a good point to touch on is there is no right time. And this isn't for training, for running, boxing. This is for general life. I had a situation when I was looking for this right opportunity, but there is no right opportunity. You've got to just go for it. If you keep waiting for all the lights to be green, they won't ever be green. The lights won't be green in life. The bowling pins won't be lined up for you. You've got to just take a chance and do it,
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, going down a long road, the lights won't all be green all of the time. That's for sure. In fact, it's very rare that ever happens. So you just got to make the best of what you've got.
Yeah, it won't work against you, but it won't for you either. It just happens. So you've got to do the best of what you can and just go for it. If you want to, it's never going to be in your favor. Just get up, do the run, do the session, do whatever you have to do. Don't wait for the right opportunity. Just take it. Because then you'll create your opportunities as you do it. And soon it will just become like second nature. You don't have to think about getting up.
I love that. I love that. And it really does, because it was hard work for me. I mean, I've been running most of my life, but, through the pandemic, it was difficult, but I rekindled that and then just started to get out. And it's like you said, you just get out and do it. Just start. And by just starting, and I've seen it, I'm in a running club in Abergavenny, South Wales. Shout out to Caffeine and Cardio. Just the fact that they do a couch to 5K as well as a normal 5K means that they're considering and listening to and very aware of people who just want to get off the couch and walk a 5K before they progress on to running a 5K. But I love the fact that they've done that, because it means to helping people who are perhaps more sedentary and haven't had the opportunity or the chances in life to get out and run. So let's start just by getting out, putting your trainers on and walking, even if it's just half a kilometer, because that's already more than you did yesterday.
Yeah, I think
it'll be 1 kilometer and 1.5 and so on and so forth. And within 6 months, easily, you'll be running 5K or jogging it quite easily.
I think what you touched on really well there is goals, and how goals are individual to every person. So my goal is different to your goal. But what you're saying now, a couch to 5K and a 5K. So someone's goal might be to go from a couch to run a 5K. Someone's goal might be running a 5K already, but they want to get under 20 minutes. And here's the thing, you're individual to yourself, and no one can take that away from you. So whatever your goal is, it's important, that individual of yourself, of what you want, that's so important, because you've got that goal and no one else can take that away from you. That's yours, and that's what you're working towards. And that's the beauty of it, I've tried all walks of life. I've got different goals. I met people through boxing, through stuff who've just got, different goals within the sport, and it's so great to meet such, good people through the sport, and, and they're just doing it for all different reasons. Some people want to be world champion, want to get fit.
And
like sport.
You're right. And then, you're accountable. You take responsibility and you're accountable for yourself. And that in and of itself makes you a stronger person. As you say, it grows that confidence, it grows that boldness, because now, as I say, you're not lying to yourself, you're not undermining yourself, you're just doing it step by step. Your goal is different to mine, is different to everybody else's. And as long as it's your goal and it's what you want to achieve, it's worth pursuing. And that procrastination then becomes history. Do we all have off days? Yes, we do. But the vast majority of us, once we've overcome that inertia of getting out, especially for runners, getting out, as I say, -5, it's snowy and icy, and it's absolutely dark at the end of January. I know when I've done that, and I've spoken to other runners who've done this, the high for us is even greater than a nice sunny day, because we know damn well how much harder it is to do that, especially when you've got to go for a long run, 20, 25K, and it's pitch black and -5 outside. That is not fun. But the payoff, the reward, is the greater high when you've come back and you think, whoa, I did that. And your fingers are numb, your feet are numb, but you still did it. So you get a great feeling from that.
Yeah, definitely. On that feeling you get after it can't be beaten, you know.
No,
Like for me,
it's a proper runner's high.
100%. Like for me, the thing you get my hand raised, there's no better feeling to it, you know. Like when all the, you know, you finish the fight, you know, you put your gum shield down there, you know, gloves come off, you're the center raised.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
I've seen you at the end of fights when you've won. If you could bottle that emotion, that highness, if you like, it's fantastic. You'd sell millions of it, wouldn't you? But it doesn't come free, does it? You've got to work bloody hard to get that win, to get that victory. What you see is literally the tip of the iceberg, and a long way down is all those hundreds of runs, those hundreds of sparring sessions, those hundreds of weightlifting and gym sessions. And it's the same with running. And I know on a much, much smaller scale for me, to get that sub 4, 356 and change, I had the greatest high of all my running, because that was my goal. And now, would you believe, my goal, and it may take a year or two, but my goal is now to get a 330. So don't laugh yet, but that's my goal. My idea with that is to get a Boston qualifier, because I'm, as you're probably aware, I know I've shared this with you, I want to get the 6 marathon majors. I got the first 4 in a year, in less than a year. Tokyo's coming up next March, which I'm really looking forward to. But Boston is the big one. And it's very difficult to get into. And I know everybody watching this who've run marathons, who want to do the 6 world major marathons. Boston is always going to be the hardest one. It's got the lowest number of entries and the biggest number of applicants for the smallest number of entries. So they make the threshold harder. So for my age group, I've got to get 330. It's my aspiration, and I will get it. And it might take a year or two, but I know from 437 to 357, chopping off 40 minutes in about a year or 14 months, I should be able to do the same. Chopping off less than half an hour in the next 12 months should be achievable. So that's what I'm working towards. So that's what I call my big hairy goal, as opposed to my intermittent goals of getting sub 4 in all the marathons. My next big goal is 330.
100%, and that's easily achievable for you.
Yeah. So your longest runs, if I recall, are the half marathons. I know you've done really good times. You've done a lot of trail runs. Some of them are quite hard. I think the Terminator was one of them, with quite a lot of gain, mud. Yeah. So help me understand. You know, I know from a boxer's perspective, 5, 10K to keep fit and get that aerobic base up. But you take it a step further. I don't think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there are many boxers that do half marathons or, you know, very, very tough trail runs. Help me understand what motivates you to do that.
We'll start with the Terminator, because that's the first proper long run, official long run I've done. Sanctioned and like adventure show up to. So me and my friend Adam, good friend of mine now, we were running just together. He runs for football, I run for boxing. And we're running up for Solomon Woods, place I've taken to you to as well. And we're doing that and stuff. And then we sort of said, oh, you know, wish we could have something to set like a bit of a goal towards running. Although our goals were boxing, football, we wanted something with the running side of it. Almost like a goal to set ourselves for that, you know, outside of, because you can always have little side goals as well.
You can, yeah.
And I heard about the Terminator Run from my brother, actually, because his partner at the time had done it. And I thought, come on, Adam, that could be all right. You know, it's 10 miles, 10 and a half miles, I think. We'll be all right doing that, you know.
So for those 10 and a half miles, about 16 or 17K. So it's a fairly long run.
Yeah, better than that. And I heard about it and I said, look, Adam, it's on a Sunday. I can get the day off work. You want to go for it? He goes, yeah, Tom. So We rocked up. We were completely new. We didn't know what we were doing, where we were going. We walked in. This is where we go. Like, got the bib, put the bib on, got on the start line. We just done a bit of warming up. We had a bit of a joke, really. There were people like warming up properly, and me and him are there, like,
What's going on? What are all these weird people doing? Yeah.
And it was just done the run, and it was mad. It was up and down all these hills, and half the front thinking, what is this? Like, I don't know.
You know what? Good on you, because again, it comes back to being bold. So having confidence and being bold for me are two different things. So confidence is knowing that you're going to do okay at something, and you're just increasing the amount of confidence by repeating that thing, whatever that thing is. But being bold could be like bungee jumping, could be like jumping out of a plane. You've got the courage, but you've never done it before. So it's just being bold. And in your case, you've told me about the Terminator, and I know where it takes place. You've got 500-600 meters of elevation. And this year's was extremely slippery. So although it's only 16, 17K, you may as well add on another 5K, because for every step you took, you may as well have taken 3, because it was that slick and muddy, wasn't it?
Well, it's real muddy. I went through one part where about my knees, I'm thinking, but I loved it. Real good, real good.
So what did you get out of that? So as I said, it's not a 5 or 10K on a road. It's a really muddy, very dirty, lots of elevation gain. It's not a typical boxer's thing, is it? So what did you gain from that? Again, just as an aside.
I got a t-shirt for one, was really cool.
Yeah. But that's not why you did it, does it?
No, I do still wear it. No, got a t-shirt. Just that satisfaction of doing it, knowing we've worked towards that goal and done it. Like, because when we were running, we're like, we're doing this for the Terminator. We've got the Terminator coming up. So having done there and done it was the satisfaction, with the fact we'd done it, we'd shown up. It was something completely out of our comfort zones. We hadn't done anything before.
Yep.
We were probably the youngest people there by a good few years. We had a bit of a laugh. We showed up, and there was an old man there. It must have been about 60 or 70.
Yeah.
He goes, right, yeah, first time, lads. We go, yeah. He goes, if you like hills and mud, you'll be all right. We thought,
right. And he was right, wasn't he?
Got to the first hill, and I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like storming up there, like, yeah. So it was.
Yeah, it's really funny, because you mentioned a couple of things there. First of all, showing up, and the second thing was having a laugh. May have been sort of throwaway statements, but what you just said there was so important.
Yeah, it was a thing for me and him to do together. We got us stronger as friends. I consider him a brother to me. In fact, we've done it with some great pictures as well. We're both like, seeing him complete it well was happiness to me. I mean, it was yes, like watching him. He said to me, Tom, I don't want to stop. I just want to complete it. And I said, you'll do that, mate. And I remember when he finished, watching him accomplish his goals was my success as well.
Yes.
His success.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. I genuinely love that. It's so important when you've got friends like that, and like you said, their success is your success, and vice versa, because that camaraderie through all that grime and effort and pain, let's face it, it's not easy some of these runs. You just get closer camaraderie, don't you, from going through some hardship together. Makes you closer as friends, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll always cheer for everyone else until it's your time, like that. Yeah. Watching him made me over the moon as well. And that Terminator then led us on to the half marathon, where we're like, let's do the half. It's my hometown half marathon. I've always heard about it. The roads have been shut, but I never given it a go. And I said to Adam, right, we're going to do it,
Yeah.
And we went out. We were out for dinner, actually. We signed up for it and stuff. We just showed up. We'd obviously done the Terminator, so we knew a little bit of work, but it was massive. It was you've been to it, so big.
And
so
you
showed up.
And you roped me into it. So, I mean, we've known each other for much longer. I've known you since you were 17, so a good 8 or 9 years. And I remember the first time you did the Reading half marathon, and you said to me you should do it. And I did it the following year. Now I've done it twice. You've done it 3 times. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. And it's a case of, roping your friends into doing stuff like this just brings you closer, because it's like I said, it's intense effort, it's painful, it's hard work. But when you finish, it's just that joy of finishing and having not only that mutual respect, but also the joy of your friends and your colleagues and companions who finished it with you.
Yeah, 100%. And we done the first half marathon we'd done together, and that was awesome. Running alongside him, there was a part during the IDR, which is the last.
Yeah, I know it well. It's the last couple. It's maybe 2 miles, maybe 3. I don't know, 2 or 3 miles. Yeah,
here's my Achilles heel. That's the bit where I really struggle, and I was really down. I was really in a bad place. But Adam picked me up, and he's like, "Right, come on, we train for this, Tom." And I'm like, "I don't want to be here." He's like, "Come on, Tom. You're stronger than this." And I was so thankful to have him there with me, because he just picked me up. He just kept me kept my head straight, said, come on, Tom, we've worked towards this, and kept me on that straight and narrow and kept me. And I'll ever be thankful for him for helping me on that, because it gave me.
It's fantastic, and I think that's really important. I mean, I do it, certainly do it on the marathons. You've got to have not only a positive mindset, but you've got to have sort of mantras that you repeat to yourself to keep yourself going. Sometimes it's words that you say to yourself, sometimes it's just into your head, and sometimes it's just music that you play that pushes you and motivates you, because it's the right kind of beat that you want to just get you going. Whatever happens, for me that works, and I know for a lot of runners do, and I know for you it does. What's demoralizing when you're tired and you're in the last 5 or 6K of a marathon or a half marathon, and somebody wearing a dinosaur costume runs past you. And it's thinking, what the hell? How did that happen? Frog suit, or wearing a fridge, or whatever it might be. So, but you run your own race. That's a mantra that we all use in running. Run your own race. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
What you're touching on there, me and Adam, one of the things we said to ourselves before we went for the half, we said, look, we're there for each other. We're there for ourselves. We're not competing against anyone else. If someone overtakes us, we overtake someone, cool. Don't get on a bit of, oh, yes, I've overtaken him. Especially on park runs when you overtake me with a push chair. You're like, But we ran for ourselves. So, we weren't focused on tunnel vision, really. We weren't focused on anyone else. We were taking it at our pace that we knew we could run.
Yeah.
And we just focused on each other and the road in front. And that's what got us to the end.
And it's so true, though. It's absolutely true. And I would advise that as well, and certainly suggest it. When I go to the running club, as I say, in caffeine and cardio, it's so much easier because there's a whole group of you. And you know where we live, so it's much more secluded. And I do find it hard to get out and run sometimes. But the more you run with people, and that includes you, of course, Tom, it's just easier because you've got some banter going on, you can chat to each other. And actually that chatting and banter helps the whole run go much faster because you're not thinking about the running, which is great.
100%. You just bounce off each other. You got each other to lift each other. The toughest, going on track here a little bit, but before I dive into this for the viewers, the toughest half marathon I'd done was the second time I'd done it, which was your first time.
Yes.
So long story short, Adam had to retire from running due to an injury, so he couldn't compete in that one. So it was me. Obviously you were there as well, but I was in a bit of a rough place at the time as well. I had a few personal things going on. It was I started off well on a marathon, but I just got about halfway by Prospect Park, which is about mile 8 or 9, I think.
Yeah.
Don't quote. Yeah. And I was in such a bad place, I won't lie. I really was in really down in the dumps. It's a steep incline as well, so that's to add to it. Right, but lungs. I was really, really tired. I was in a really bad place mentally, but I thought, I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to keep. But I had that nagging thing in the back of my head telling me, oh, you can quit now, Tom, you can stop. All the bad stuff was sort of coming in. I thought, no, I'm just going to keep at it.
Yeah.
And then it got the idea, and it just kept getting worse. My brain was playing tricks on me. I thought, no, I'm going to win. I'm going to do this. And ended up getting the best time I've ever done, which is 1:41.
It is amazing. That runner's high that you get at the end of something where it's hard and it's hurting and it's painful, and yet you're still pushing through. Not to a dangerous level, but to a level where you can cope. But anybody that's got a slightly weaker mindset or slightly lazier, they wouldn't push as hard because they just want to finish comfortably. So first of all, congratulations for doing that, because I've been there, and it's when it was in Seville, same sentiment exactly. It was at kilometer 37, 36, 37. I had 5K left to do. I'd just been running 3.5 hours, and I thought, I got to just get this last 5K. And it's so tempting just to slow down. I promise you, it was one of the easiest things I could have done. It's just, I can't bother, just go at your pace. And then I thought, no, I've come this far. It's cost money to be here, and I want to get this sub 4. And then you just, there's like a switch in your brain, isn't it? And I just pulled the switch down, and bang. It's a bit like, I can't remember the movie where the guy just turns his cap around and then he's in fight mode. It was the same sort of thing. I just switched it down and I kept the pace up, and it was hard and it was really, really painful. At the end of that, I didn't get blackouts, but I was getting a bit dizzy because I pushed so hard. But then when I look back at the clock and it was like 3:56 and change, it's like, yes.
Yeah.
You can't get a better high than that. It was worth the effort, because an hour later, you don't feel the pain anymore. You've had your coffee and your croissant, and then you feel great. And you think, well, why don't I do that every time?
Yeah. I think what you touched on there as well is, I wanted to talk about earlier, you got into flow state. I thoroughly believe you were in. It's a really good book for your viewers called The Rise of Superman. Now, it's actually recommended to me by Chris from Kickboxing. really great guy.
Brilliant. I know
Um,
Chris really well. He's a great guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
on Read Rise Superman. It's all about flow state, and there's a, I believe he's Japanese man, and he figured out what flow state is, and it's when you're in that sweet spot where something's too hard and too easy, and you just got that flow. Everything else blacks out. You know what you do. You don't have to think. You're just in that. You're just flowing with it. You know, the
And
very famous rock.
time just passes by quickly because you're not thinking. And
Yeah,
before you know it, 4 or 5 hours have passed. You're like, whoa, what happened? It's the same if you're in a sales office or a marketing office, you're so into the project that actually your flow state takes over. Next thing you know, it's dinner time. You think, whoa, what's happened? But you were so enjoying it, so in that mindset
yeah.
that time just passes. And as you say, when you're running or boxing and you're in that flow state, it really does work.
It's a really good book that I read. I took a lot away from it about how to access flow state and how, you know, people live to access it. And it's this, when you get it, you know you got it because you.
I think I know the one you went, and if you want, we'll confirm later. But I'll put it in the show notes as well, so people can click on it and find it in a bookstore somewhere. And all the other books we put in there, actually, I'll put those in the show notes as well. Yeah, for sure. Brilliant.
I remember the second boxing fight. It was round 3, so the fight started off. It wasn't exactly working out in my favour. I probably lost the first round. Okay, so right, Tom, you need to start putting it down. You need to start working now. Second round, I believe I won. Third round, everything was up for grabs. If I lost that third round, I probably would have lost the fight. And there was a point there where I was landing my shots, and I remember I was on the side closest to his corner, and I think I landed in a combination. I just felt in the groove, in the flow, and everything just almost like a movie. Everything just faded away.
To work really well for you, yeah.
Yeah, I was in that flow and I was moving as well. And I remember I was getting a bit cocky. I was dropping, but you know, I just in that flow, and I accessed that flow state. It may have only been maybe 10, 20 seconds, but if you watch back at the video, I can point the exact moment where I entered flow state.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, everything just blacked away, and I won the fight. And that's, you know, that was so important, that flow state. It got me in that groove and that zone. And it's just, when you reach it, it's like out of body experience, you know, you just, nothing else matters.
It is. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It really is. And it's hard to conjure up, but it's almost like a culmination of stress, anxiety, goal achievement, hard work, all coming together in one. Enjoyment, pleasure, the whole thing. So it's almost like a dichotomy of different feelings. But because you know you can do it, but you're not quite there yet, you go into this flow state in order to achieve it. And you're right, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. You're so right there. Yeah. I've on the faster marathons for sure. Yeah. Well, just before we finish then, Tom, so going back, you know, the Terminator, for example, and the half marathon, not in detail, but you know, you'd never done those before, and you decided to do it because it was something new, something different, and it was something hard. Let's face it, this is not a walk in the park. What would you advise others to do who are thinking the same? You know, I've got this half marathon to do, or even if it's just a 10K for them because they've never done a 10K, maybe they've only walked or done 5K, and their aspiration is to get to a 10K, not fast, but just finish it. It could be as low as a 5, it could be a half or a full marathon. And if somebody was thinking that, but they don't quite have the confidence, or as you say, the boldness to do it, they haven't quite committed, they haven't pressed send, or they haven't clicked on buy now, whatever it might be, what would you advise them?
It's going to sound quite simple, but just to do it, just do it, to take that risk, just take that jump, you know, take that leap, you know, just signing up for it puts you miles above everyone else in the country, in the world, you know. Just go for it, just go there. Even if you do the half and it takes you 3 hours, you've still done it. You know, you got to think, this is you currently right now, and this is you when you've done the half marathon. You're just, even by going and competing in it, you're already making yourself better. You know, you've already but if you didn't do it, you just stay where you are, you know. So it's that you know, this is you here, this is you after you've done it, you know. So the simple, although it's harder than it sounds, but just go for it. Make yourself a pact. Just, you know, have yourself, right, I'm going to do this. You know, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do it. No one will make fun of you if you know, do it and you get bad time. No one will, you know, anything like that. Just say to yourself, I'm going to do it, and just do it. Just decide and then just do it, you know. Because what's waiting on the side of that fear, maybe that anxiety of doing it, is, you know, is glory. You know, like in Troy when he's on the beach and he's like, oh, like, wait till you're on those hills, is glory, take it. You know, just you know that movie. You know, just go for it.
Yeah. Gladiator is one of my favorite as well. But you know, what's important about that is, I think the piece that you said was just show up. I mean, you know, not to steal Nike's thunder, but just do it is a really, really cool phrase, isn't it? So, you know, and a lot of people say just showing up is half the battle. So just be there. If you start, It's more than the vast majority of the population have done. And if you manage to complete it, then like you said, this is you before, this is you after. Now, that gap that you've just earned, to be honest, you've earned that increase. How does that help you for the next big challenge in life? Does it help you for the next big challenge in life?
I think it does, because you've got that confidence from doing it. You can say like, oh, I've done this half, I can do this proposal at work, or I've done this half, I can do a full. Or for me, it was like, oh, I've done the Terminator, I've done the half. Now let's go for my first boxing match. I had that confidence. And you build on it. You build on your success, you build on the confidence. You go, right, I've done this, let's go to the next level. Life was all about finding those new levels. So like for me, one fight, I want to make it two, make it three.
It's so true. And you're going to go on to 4-0 and 5-0, and these are all your aspirational goals. I don't know actually what your big goal is. Is it to get 10 or 20? I don't know. Or maybe to go up a weight class, or to go more rounds and to become a pro. All of those are aspirational goals. But I know you for sure, you're not going to sit on your laurels at 3-0, that's for sure. You're always trying to achieve more. And just the mindset and the thought process of trying to achieve more is already pulling you up in the right direction, rather than just staying where you are.
100%. There's a famous book. It's one of the guys from SAS who dares wins. It's Mark. Yes. And I think his mantra is a little further. And I liked that, because there's always just like everything he does is always just a little bit further, And that's the same with me, like a little bit further, 3-0, 4-0. I've done, this bit in sparring. All right, can I get better? I had a sparring session with someone recently where I'd done really, really well. Really probably the best I've ever had. But I walked away and thought, right, I did good. How can I do better? So next session, I was working on what I can do to get better. I reviewed my sparring, I wrote it all down, which I always do. And the bits that I need to work on, I was working on. The bits that worked, I worked on even more. The bits that I got caught with or I wasn't doing as well, I worked to improve on those. So it's all that, always a little further. Never satisfied is what I always say. Never satisfied. Just
It's funny, isn't it? Always a little further, and always a little bit longer, always a little bit harder, always a little bit faster. So we're not pushing ourselves to the crazy levels, because then, going outside your comfort zone in incremental steps means you're expanding that comfort zone. So all of a sudden your zone is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But what I call the shock zone is, if I ask Tom to do 5 rounds, the chances are you could probably do it now, and that's within a few weeks. But if I asked you to do 12 rounds with a pro boxer, that's what I would call the shock zone, because you're not ready for that. And going 12 rounds with a pro boxer is a bit too much. It's a bit like asking me now to go and run a 100-miler next week. There's no chance I would do that. That's what I call the shock zone. But if I did another 50-kilometer, then an 80-kilometer, then a 100-kilometer, then a 100-miler in a year or two, that would be doable. So it's always about the incremental improvements, as you say, just a little further, just a little further. And I think that works. It's a good advice.
Just a little bit further, a little bit extra, never satisfied. Although I'm happy with what I've done, I always say I'm never satisfied. What's next? I want that next improvement. I want that, the next run, the next fight, the next training session,
And I love it, because a lot of what stops us doing new stuff is fear. The fear of it going wrong, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of what people might say. For me, that's all nonsense. You're doing it for yourself. You're accountable and responsible for yourself. And one acronym I heard from one of my coaches years ago is FEAR, is false expectations appearing real. They're not real. These are all in your head. Read about mindset and positive outlook on life is where you start to gain the momentum and the difference between you and somebody who is more fearful.
Yeah, there's always more wolves until they are counted. Yes. You're a bit bigger, a bit scarier than you think it is. When you break it down and you take it, it's all an experience at the end of the day. If you do something that doesn't work, maybe you don't get just an experience. Say someone out and they say no. What's an experience? What I mean? Say you talk, they don't like you. It's experience.
It's experience, it's learning. And, before you read your first 31 books, I mean, you probably thought, if somebody said to you in 2020, Tom, you're going to have to read 31 books this year, you'd be like, why would I want to read 31 books? That's an awful lot of books. I never read a book in my life at school. Why would I read 30? And now you've read 84 books. If somebody told you that, 3 years ago that you're going to read 84 books in 3 years, you'd have said, yeah, right, whatever.
Yeah,
But
you know,
you read one, you get the motivation and the learnings. You think, oh, that was pretty good, actually. I'll read another, read another. Before you know it, you're up to 84 books. Soon you'll be on 100 books. I'm telling you now, there are very few people that have read 100 books. And at your age, that's an achievement. And what I really like about that is each one of them has a message, has a learning, and all that compound effect of all those teachings and all those learnings are in there. And I'm not surprised then that you take on things that you've never done before and that you're able to win your fights, because the mindset that you've got for somebody who reads that much and then more importantly applies and implements those lessons, why would you not be successful in pretty much everything? Of course, you're always going to take a step back, down once or twice, but the general trajectory is upward motion, upward success.
yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure again. I'm going to leave you to enjoy your holiday. You're out in California. It looks absolutely stunning there. Any last comments or words or books that you recommend to our listeners, particularly for, for example, running or just taking on something difficult? What would you say?
I mean, you got to go with, comes to mind is David Goggins' books.
Yeah.
Like, if you want motivation, if you want like some tough lessons, read David Goggins. Never finished. Like, they're both really good. Both a lot of good real messages I've got in there. Past all the bravado of like, never finished and stuff. Like, you get like, the cookie pot jar, you get taking souls, all the lessons he's got there. And it's how he just even says how sometimes he wakes up and stares at his running shoes for an hour. If David Goggins don't feel like, I don't want to go out today, that's that. David Goggins' books I definitely recommend. Another good book that comes to mind is Grit.
I've read that. It's a fantastic book. Yeah.
Beats, necessarily, how fit you are, how strong you are. Another book, Mindset, comes to mind as well. That's a really, really good one.
Fantastic. All right, fabulous. Well, there's a lot there to read already, and I'm going to note all your other books. We'll put them in the show notes as well. Those are all, and they're all available on audio as well. And I call it net time, no extra time. So if people say they haven't got time to read a book, well, you know what? These days you can get audio versions on your smartphone. This used to be the case when I was training people in a business capacity. Oh, I don't have time to read a book. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. It's not time that they don't have. It's not prioritizing what's important that they don't have. And even if that's the case, then actually the next time you're running or jogging or cycling or on the tube to work, but particularly if you're driving, for example, or running, then an audio book means that you can do two things at once. So it is possible. So we can multitask. You can listen to a very, very good audiobook while you're running or cycling or driving. That way, at least on a cognitive and an academic level, that stuff is going in.
Yeah.
And then the more you repeat that, repetition creates mastery. And that's in boxing, it's in running, and it's in everything. So the more you do something, the better you get it. The better you get, the more confident and bold you get. So I'm absolutely in agreement with you there. That's so true. Yeah, good. Right. Well, we've got a small tradition here. So it's starting off with Ivan from the Barefoot Runner that we did last week. And I said, I'm going to do this next time with him. So with you, Tom, being, this is a fairly young channel and you're a guest on here as a second guest, what question or questions, but no more than two, but certainly what question would you like me to ask my next guest? And we've no idea who that's going to be, do we? But I will place the question to them.
My question to them. What is your biggest takeaway from running so far?
Yeah, okay. The biggest takeaway from running so far, right? That's been recorded and I've noted it down as well. So all that's left for me to do is to say a big thank you. And by the way, I know you haven't run a full marathon yet. I'm still going to get you to do that at some point. Because we'll come back again and we'll talk about what because a half marathon is a half marathon. Full marathon is not double a half marathon. It is much harder. And I'm sure people out there have done both, no difference. I know you can do it. It's just a case of getting you to do it. Because now that you've got this boldness and this courage, it's just getting on. And like Nike said, and you've said, just do it. So we're going to do that next year or tail end of this year, mate. All right. Well, listen, have a great holiday. Just show the viewers where you are just very quickly so we all get very jealous.
Let's have a quick, this is me.
That looks awful. That's rainy and grey and horrible.
I know, it's a hard life, really. So I just had my breakfast out here, got my nice book as well at the moment. Thank you to Leif's daughter, actually. She's given me the Hunger Games series. But it's not just non-fiction that I read. I do really enjoy fiction as well. I just got into it this year. Well, I compliment the both really. I read like, I've got audios of non-fiction, I've got paperback of fiction, so I like a bit of both as well. So I think that's
helps distract your mind, and it also helps that creativity. It's up for non-fiction as well, fiction rather. Yeah.
anyone thinking, oh, fiction's not as good as non-fiction, change up your mindset, because I changed mine up this year and I've got loads out of reading fiction. So that's another little lesson out there. Do both, because you'll thank yourself for it. And I've really enjoyed getting back to my fiction this year. So
that's good advice. And it's a case of just try everything. And if you like it, like it. You don't, you try something else. So that's a nice bit of advice. And a good place to end. Fantastic. Brilliant. All right, Tom, listen, have a great run today. Get into that blue ocean. It looks amazingly inviting. Eat well where you are. Enjoy the sun, because it's grey and horrible here and windy and wet. So, all right. See you when you get back. Safe travels. And I look forward to you on another podcast at some point.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Take care, mate. Cheers, Tom. Bye for now.